If you are brave enough to watch today's episode, I think you'll enjoy learning how the Falcons season got turned upside down. Now, before we get into it, we're going to have a Monday Night Football watch party for Falcons versus Raiders. And my boss told me if we do not get 20 new subscribers off of today's video, they are not going to greenlight producer Reed's schedule to come in for Monday Night Football. So hit that sub button down below if you like today's episode. How in the world did we get here? Wasn't very long ago, the Falcons had a comfortable lead in the NFC South. They have the head-to-head tiebreaker against the Buccaneers. A home playoff game was nearly in their reach, and now they are outside the playoff picture. They are going to need some help to get in. They're going to need Tampa to slip up at least once, and Atlanta likely has to be perfect to close out the year if they want to make the playoffs. So, I am going to try and wrestle and tackle the how it got to this stage. Now, full transparency, it's not just on one person, although Kirk Cousins definitely takes up the biggest piece of the pie. But there are a couple of things we can really point to. One, sticking with Kirk Cousins. This one falls on Raheem Morris's shoulders. No, Cousins is to blame when it comes to the lack of touchdown passes and the one too many interceptions, 8 to be exact, during this 4-game losing streak. But Raheem Morris had the chance to make a change, and ultimately, I think he truly stuck with Kirk Cousins because he wanted some Disney movie moment of going back to Minnesota and beating his former team and igniting a spark in this locker room. Instead, we got another offer in the touchdown category for Cousins in Week 14, and not one but 2 interceptions. And when you look over the last 4 weeks, look on the left at the 4 losses, and look on the right to a very, very different scene of 3 wins, including 4 touchdowns against the Buccaneers, and we've got plenty of touchdowns spread across the board. So, how did we get here? Well, it's not a simple thing to answer because I wish I had the answers as to how Kirk Cousins just completely fell off a cliff. But what I can tell you is he is severely hamstringing this team in his performance in wins versus losses. Yes, players play better when the team wins, right? That's why the team wins, because they played well. But look at the very big difference between his numbers in wins versus losses. 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, compared to 3 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Just for reference, I picked a middle-of-the-pack quarterback this year to show you how different they are in wins and losses. Look at Geno Smith's numbers. 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in wins versus 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Yet no surprise that they have more touchdowns in wins and fewer interceptions than in losses. But go back to Cousins one more time. Holy cow! These are way too far apart. These numbers are way too polarizing to have any level of consistent play. I mean, this team has literally been living and dying off of Kirk Cousins. This is a college basketball team that lives and dies by the 3. Except their 3-point shooter is their center. And that's what we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks. Kirk Cousins is sinking this team. You didn't have to bench him after the Saints game. Younghoe Koo missed 3 field goals. That's not Raheem Morris's fault. You didn't have to bench him after the Broncos loss. It was a bad game for them. But on the road against a good Denver team, the byes next week. All right, let's look at the tape, but let's get ready for the Chargers after the bye. But you came out of the bye, and Kirk Cousins put together the worst game of his NFL career. 4 interceptions, including a pick 6. That should have been the moment right there for Raheem Morris to go. If there was a time for Cousins to get back on track, it was today. It was back at home for the first time in a while. Off the bye against a Chargers team that's missing a starting corner, that's on a short week because they just played on Monday Night Football and they lost. All of the signs were there for Cousins to get back on track. And when it was the worst game of his career, Raheem Morris just doubled down on him. And by the way, he's continuing to, sticking by him going into Monday Night Football. So if you want to see the 8th overall draft pick start on Monday night, show me by liking today's video. I didn't go into this year hating Kirk Cousins or trying to get, everyone against him. But man, 4 straight losses, no touchdown passes, and 8 interceptions. What quarterback survives that? I can only think of political reasons as to why Cousins continues to start, not what is best for this team. That's the first reason why Atlanta has seen their season collapse. The second reason, penalties. This is not a widespread epidemic throughout the entire season, but going into week 14 against the Vikings, backs against the wall, Atlanta shut down their pants. And we're going to expand on that in just a second. First, today's episode is made possible thanks to our friends over at Factor. Power through your busy holiday days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. From breakfast to dinner and anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. I'm in the middle of a move right now, which sucks. But one thing that really helps it keep it going even somewhat manageably is having Factor in the fridge. That way we don't spend, an hour taking a lunch or a dinner break or something like that. We can just throw Factor into the microwave and we are ready to roll. Factor lets you do you. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat if you'd like to, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/50 Falcons Chat and use code 50 Falcons Chat to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50 Falcons Chat at factormeals.com/50 Falcons Chat to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Let's get back to how the collapse happened. So, going into Sunday's game, you're 500. You can still control your own destiny. And if you lost that game because it was a close battle and it came down to the Vikings nailing a 50-yard walk-off field goal, that would suck, but you could kind of understand how you got there. Instead, Atlanta kind of did it to themselves. I mean, kudos and credit to the Vikings, though. The receivers were great. Darnold was awesome. But Atlanta gave them every opportunity to be successful, committing, at the time up until the Giants game concluded, a NFL 2024 season-high 12 penalties. In what's the biggest game of the year up to this point, you commit 12 penalties? You are fighting for a playoff spot. You are in the midst of a 3-game losing streak, and you decide, let's tie one hand behind our back and fight one-handed. That, to me, comes down to coaching. It does. I mean, for you to put up that type of performance, knowing everything at stake, with the way you've been playing, you're tied 3 quarters in, and you continue to shoot yourself in the foot. Clearly, this coaching staff did not get their players prepared for Sunday if they were going to go out there and commit 12 penalties. That's a moment right there where longtime viewer of the channel, Jay, can definitely, say that's a win for me in terms of telling everyone for months now Raheem Morris is not a good coach. So what's your confidence level in Raheem Morris? I'm low right now. I mean, I won't go as far to say I'm a 1. I'm at a 3.9. I'm at a 3.9 at the moment. Third reason as to why we saw Atlanta's collapse. Key play calling. So, just like the penalties, that was a detail in a very important game. Another important game in the midst of this collapse was the Chargers game. Coming off the bye, trying to shake this 2-game losing streak. You're at home. You have every advantage in the world. And Zach Robinson just decided to make life much more difficult than it needed to be for his own troops. Let's roll the tape here for a second here. We've got 3rd and 1 at your own 39-yard line. And Zach Robinson decides, let's run a little jet sweep with Drake London. And who's going to be making the key block for Drake London? It's Ray McLeod on all-pro safety Derwin James. How do you think that went, Zach? Why don't we just look? That's how it went. It's a loss, and the Falcons have to punt on 4th down. On 3rd down, in the midst of a losing streak, you decide to put 5'9", $190 Ray McCloud in a position to stop 6'2", 25 pounds heavier, all-pro safety Derwin James. Did Ray McCloud make a good play? No. Was Ray McCloud put in a position to be successful? Absolutely not. And that right there is on the coaching staff. But here's the crazy thing. Zach Robinson made a mistake. People make mistakes. I make mistakes. But then he decided, let's run it back. Let's do another jet sweep. This time, though, we're going to have Ray run it. Okay, we're making progress. We're not going to have the 5'9" guy make the key block on this play. We're going to put the ball in his hands. He's speedy. He's shifty. Now Drake London, instead of blocking the defender who's right behind his right shoulder, he decides to go to the second level. And what's going to happen is the player that London should have blocked is going to go and make the tackle on Ray McCloud. And another jet sweep gone horribly, horribly wrong. Coaches set their players up to succeed, right? Coach them up and then put them in a position to be successful. You can do this at anywhere. Take a McDonald's manager. If you've got someone who's very good at flipping burgers, don't put them on the ice cream machine. Put people in spots where they can present the best version of themselves. You did not sign Ray McCloud to make key blocks on 3rd and 1 against 6'2" safeties. That's not what you paid him to do. Can you ask him to do that from time to time? Sure. He's a great guy, a good player, and he's going to give his best effort. Don't ask him to do it when you're coming off a bye, you're on a 2-game losing streak, the offense is in a funk. If you want to play with your food, all right. Maybe do it a little bit when you've got a comfortable lead or something. Not when you are clawing for every yard, for every inch, like your season depends on it, because it does. So who is more to blame for this disastrous second half of the season? Kirk Cousins or Raheem Morris? Ultimately, coaches coach, players play, and I'm going to go with the player here. I'm going to say Kirk Cousins is more to blame for this with the horrible throws he's had, just the overall 180 of himself from what we saw in the weeks 2 to 9 sample size. 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions over the last 4 games. Raheem Morris definitely has blood on his hands as the head coach. It starts at the top and it goes down. But Raheem Morris not the one actually throwing the pigskin and throwing it to the wrong team. At that point, I think it's fair to point the finger at Kirk Cousins. So, that will do it for us on today's episode. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you have not subscribed yet, make sure to do so. That way I get a producer for Monday Night Football. We'll make a whole lot better of a broadcast.